So, welcome everyone to another Prentice Live, where we talk with tech leaders and bootcamp alumni about their journey and tips for new techies. Before we get into it today, everyone, please just comment where you're joining us from in the actual live chat. Want to see how far our reach is across the country, and also just get everyone started. And while everyone's doing that, I want to welcome our guest today, Jason Riedel or Riedel.
Riedel, you got it right.
Riedel. So Jason is co-founder and CTO at Aspireship. We're helping people break into tech sales. Did I get that right?
That is right.
All right, just making sure I didn't botch the pitch about the description. And Jason, where you joining us from today?
Scottsdale. Well, actually, I guess I'm in Cave Creek, Arizona.
Cake Creek, like
cave, like cave where bats are. Caves.
Gotcha.
Cavemen.
All right, so it looks like you're close to Shannon.
Yeah.
And also with being in Scottsdale, is that where your whole team is, or is it?
Yeah, so that's why I said Scottsdale first. Our actual office is in Scottsdale, which is about 20 minutes south of Cave Creek in Arizona. And I just drove home real quick for this so I could do it from home. Because my wife would appreciate that I'm home by dinner. So.
Well, you got your full stomach? You already ate dinner?
I did not. I'm going to eat after. So if I get hungry and cranky, you know why.
Yeah, I swear my guests never eat before. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. I cannot do a stream event without a full stomach.
I should have ate.
Yeah, we won't hold you too long. We'll see how many questions we got at the end. But yeah, so let's dive right into it. So you have a long history in technology. So what year did you start with engineering and just tech?
Boy. What year? I was 9.
9?
Let's see, I was born in 83. So I was watching another guy from Facebook, and his answer was like, I'm not one of these guys who started. I was like, oh, well, I am. I don't know what to say to that. I'm one of these people who started real young. I just had this affinity with computers, and it was sort of an addiction. My parents would call it an addiction. I missed a lot of school because I couldn't get off the computer. So yeah, I started around 9, like teaching myself how to type. I was that fascinated. It was like literally my goal. I asked my 2nd grade teacher if I could type my homework. But engineering-wise, as soon as I was 16, I started at a internet service provider. And that's an interesting story, so we should talk about it. But
at the young.
I did not go to college, and it's sort of what defines me. While my sister is very academic, very summa cum laude, master's at Pepperdine, and all these good things, and I'm kind of the opposite. So again, it kind of drives me, kind of defines me. I'm a self-taught individual, but I just had a very distinct draw towards computers.
No, that's great. And I didn't know you were self-taught. Honestly, I thought you were a college person, but
no.
So I feel like being self-taught back in the day was much, much tougher.
Well, I don't know that that's true, but what was true was when I was coming into the tech workforce in around 98, 99, it was the .com boom. So there was a lot of competition for jobs, and everybody was in college for computer science at that time. And I was sort of blessed because I was able to get into that company by being persistent. So we should talk about that. But afterwards, everybody stopped wanting to do tech because the .com bubble burst. And there I was, like knight in shining armor, like, no, I just want to do this. I'm going to stay. So. Yeah,
I know. I've heard about it. Like, I can't imagine being in like that first tech bubble and everyone's just like, all right, the internet's done,
It was nuts. It was nuts. I mean, people would, there's stories upon stories, but it was a really crazy time that we haven't seen anything like that since. So.
No, thank goodness. I hope we won't have another one like that. But so you start working at internet service provider 16, and then from there, like, did you go into coding right away? And then
no, not even close. Yeah. So if you look at my background, I'm primarily an infrastructure guy, but I did a detour in networking, and the reasoning for that was I started in internet service providers. And I got really into networking. I'll tell you this story. So when I was 16, I was at that internet service provider company called Planet Systems Networks. And they did DSL and dial-up. First, when I started dial-up, and then they got into DSL. And they did really well, but they expanded too quickly the sales and not the tech, and it sort of destroyed the business, which is a longer story. But during that time, I got into Cisco routers and things of that nature. And my boss at the time said to me, "Hey, if you go out and get your CCNA," I had my A+, I should mention. So when I was 16, I got my A+, and I think it was brand new at the time. It wasn't very old, the certification itself. And it was just the way that I got that first job. I had to prove my credibility. They didn't trust me. So I was like, well, what if I go do this? And they were like, yeah. And I just kept coming back. So I got the A+. And then, similarly, like my boss was like, hey, I'll promote you to like the senior, systems administrator, network architect, whatever, if you go get your CCNA, because it's really hard to get. So I was like, okay, I like a challenge. So I went out, and like 2-3 weeks later, I come back with my CCNA. And he told me, and this will date things a bit for you, but he told me, he goes, if you go get your CCNA, I'll give you $10 an hour. And for me, I was like, wow, $10 an hour. This is amazing, because I'm in high school, dude. Like that was amazing.
Oh, I mean, $10 is amazing. Yeah.
So fast forward though, I come back with it, and he goes, giving you $13.50 an hour. So that's that story. And then shortly after that, the company went out of business. I think I made like $13.50 for like 4 months.
Yeah, they paid you too much.
Yeah, I put them out of business.
But yeah, it's funny. Like back in the day, there was a heavy emphasis on certifications, like CCNA. For people that don't know, it's like from Cisco, and like with administration of the network. Like you can explain it better, but I remember when I first was like trying to go into technology, like my brother-in-law, who's like also been in tech for a while, he's like, yeah, get your CCNA. And he was completely wrong. So thank God. Listen.
So funny. Yeah. And so, I forgot you asked me this. Sorry. I did not stay in networking because I felt like it didn't break very often. So it felt like if you don't touch your network, if you don't upgrade your iOS code or your code on your devices, and if you're not in there messing with configurations, it really doesn't break. So I thought that wasn't very challenging. Meanwhile, I fell in love with Linux servers, and I felt like those broke all the time because of the different applications they ran. There was always some kind of a problem. So I just fell in love with that. And yeah, so I was coding at that time. I started coding, like I said, very young, but I wasn't coding as a programmer as a career. In fact, I have never done that until now. So it's funny because I managed developers at my previous 2 companies. And so I'm managing doing code reviews and all this good stuff. But actually writing all the code myself, where part of my job function is programmer at Aspireship. Most of it, I should say, when you're a startup, you do a lot of that hands-on, is developer. And that's actually one of the draws for me of doing a startup, is the amount of learning I could get by having to wear both the technical hat and the strategic hat from an executive perspective at the same time. And it's been really great.
Yeah, I want to get deep into Aspireship. So like, I still want to track the journey into it. So before Aspireship, I saw like their last role was in cloud at PayPal, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay, so working in cloud, like what were you doing at like this huge company?
So what I did was I PayPal has a private cloud, or had a private cloud. They still have it, but their goal is to go into public cloud, and specifically the Google Cloud platform. And I was hired specifically to take their infrastructure and start migrating it for their production environments into Google Cloud. And they hired me actually as an architect. And then as soon as I got there, almost immediately, they built a team around me. So they said, no, now you're going to manage the team. Which is almost identical to what happened to me at Symantec. So at Symantec, I went there, and just if people don't know this, but I was at PayPal. I left PayPal to go to Symantec, and then I came back to PayPal, and then I went to Aspireship. So I kind of did this weird thing, but the draw was learning, right? And this is advice I want to give to people that are watching. I have always prioritized learning over everything else, and I think it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. So what I was doing when I left PayPal the first time was I didn't think they were going to do public cloud, and I really wanted to work on public cloud. So I left PayPal, went to Symantec to do Amazon Web Services, AWS Cloud, did that, and then PayPal called me and was like, hey, we're going to do Google Cloud. You want to come back? And I was like, well, okay, I'm done over here, so I'll go over there. So that's kind of, an opportunist.
So speaking of clouds, I know a lot of people that are new to the cloud stuff. I feel like AWS has more courses about it, so people start with that more often. But what would you say is the difference between like AWS and Google Cloud right now?
Well, there's a lot of differences, primarily in mindset. How they're built is different, but the primary differences between them, just so everybody is aware, is in their identity and access management, so their security, and in their network. Those are the two fundamental differences between how AWS and how GCP is built. The other differences are in the ancillary services, right? So if you get into their machine learning APIs or any of those, there's going to be a lot of uniqueness where they start to differentiate a lot more in there. But outside of that, I always tell people, like even Azure, which is the Microsoft cloud, between the big three, as I like to call them, there's not a lot of difference in the core primitive services, which would be compute, storage, and networking. You can accomplish whatever you need to accomplish between them. And then I felt like your question, Rod, was like a little bit different than how I answered it. I felt like it was more about how they're different. Did I get the answer to your question, or you want to re-ask?
No, it was insightful. I guess like to go further, like one thing I've heard is Google Cloud is more built for developers than AWS is. And like I've built my past startup in Google Cloud, so I'm just trying to understand what's like the advantages of each, basically. So you mentioned the differences, but what makes one better than the other in a certain aspect?
Well, nuances, it's people's opinions. I can't really tip my hat in one direction or the other. And I have extensive experience and credibility with these platforms. But if you were to ask me which I like more, I don't think I could really give an answer. I like them both.
Okay.
They do things differently. Now, but if you ask me which one I would use for something specific, I would have like a much better answer because I'm very familiar with which things work out better in which platforms. But if you give me like a broad question, I'm not going to be able to really articulate a good answer for that.
Okay. So all right. So for certain developers, they build a lot of their projects on simpler tools like Heroku, Netlify. So at what point do you think someone should go from that to a cloud solution instead?
Oh my God, this is funny. I'm actually launching a YouTube channel and I'm doing a video on what you just asked me. This is funny. I was doing it last night. So
here's a preview.
Yeah. So my answer is actually that I would personally start with the simpler platforms. I would start with the DigitalOceans and the Herokus. And then what I would do is as I needed services that were more complex, I would just call out to the clouds, AWS, GCP, wherever that service was I needed. And the reason I would do it that way is because partially because of cost and partially because of simplicity. It's just an easier way to do it. And then also you should sort of get used to the idea of distributed services and how to deal across like latency boundaries between two clouds. Because like it's very rare that like you're ever gonna run a production application in one region or one zone and have high availability. In other words, like it not fail all the time. So you should sort of get used to that constraint when you're building things out. So that's my personal recommendation. A lot of people are probably like, with the same level of experience with me, are probably like, oh, it's crazy. We'll just run it all in one cloud. He's nuts. But that's my answer. So.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I know I've heard about that before. So I was just wondering. All right, so let's get to Aspireship. Okay, so you're working at PayPal. Now you're leading the cloud. You're leading this migration to Google Cloud. And then for Aspireship, I know you're a co-founder, but was the original idea like from you or did someone else come get you?
Great question. Someone else come got me. I love how that's exactly. So actually what happened was Corey, my co-founder, and really the founder of Aspireship, to your point, came up with the idea before he ever met me. And I was happy-go-lucky at PayPal. And I always tell the story because it was hard for me to leave because it wasn't planned. It wasn't like I went back there just so I could leave. But you can't help when and where these opportunities come up, right? And when and where you meet people, for that matter. For any, big piece of advice for all you job seekers out there is networking is the number one thing you can invest in. I wouldn't even tell you learning is. I would tell you networking is and then learning because every single job I've ever got is from somebody. You don't have to interview. People just come get you. So Corey and I met through our children's preschool. So we both have kids. Okay. That's how we met, just sort of serendipitous in a way. And we started hanging out as family friends. And we didn't know what each other did. We started talking about it. I was like, wait, you do what? And he's like, wait, you do what? And so then we started talking about this idea. I could see the light in his eyes. I'm like, Corey, you've been kind of flirting with me. What do you want to ask me? I kind of figured that he wanted me to be a CTO. And sure enough, that's what was going on. So that's kind of the start of it. That was a couple of years ago. So we've only known each other for about 2.5 years, but it's been like a brotherhood. It's really cool.
It's funny you said he was flirting because I know when I was looking for a founder in my last company, I actually took like a potential CTO out to lunch, and he's like, I feel like you're like taking me on a date. I'm like, yeah, we're founder dating right now.
We're founder dating. No, and that's something Corey told me too. It's like, people say like finding your co-founder is like finding your wife. So I mean, it's exactly. Because the reality is you got to be there for each other. You got to be like rocks and pillars as you go through this stuff. This stuff's not easy, right? Like, so it's very important for you guys to work as a lockstep unit. So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So like, what was it that kind of got you like, all right, I'm getting out of PayPal and I'm gonna go full in on this startup? Like, that's a huge decision. So, like, there has to be something that clicked in, like
massive decision. Yeah, I'm debating in my head whether I should just talk about how big that decision was, but it was not easy. I would say that most people would not do what I did financially. That's the first thing I would say. And I think anybody who goes on the startup journey recognizes that that's the risk, that's the sacrifice, that's a large part of it is what you're willing to do there. For me, I was already sort of established, so the risk was less for me, but it's still, when you're a father, I got 2 kids, it's not an easy thing. And I was raised with certain risk adversities for like financially and stuff. So it was hard for me to make the jump, but ultimately, I discussed it with my wife and she knew that I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. Here's a random thing that a lot of people know about me is I ran a hip hop label for almost 10 years. So that little other side, those 2 albums right there are mine. You just can't see them. But
you got to give us a link to the music after this.
I was going to say, I'll let people find it, but no, I could do that. But, I did it for a long time. So I had this entrepreneurial spirit. And I always wanted to do a tech startup. But, the thing that always failed for me was I'd be getting together with other technologists, and I didn't really have somebody who understood the business well enough and who understood some of the other things that I knew were my gaps. So I needed somebody who was strong enough in the areas where I was weak for it to make sense. And when Corey came along, again, it was just like, man, this dude is somebody I could learn from, number one. And number two, he's got his shit together, right? Corey's, if you look into his history, he's done previous startups before. So he's somewhat of a serial entrepreneur and he's a successful one. So I was like, this is your opportunity. You've always wanted to do it. You get one chance to live, sort of YOLO. And I was like, go for it. So that was part of it. The other big, huge part of it is prioritizing my learning, right? Like everything I do is around, Jason, don't let money control you. You're here to learn. You're here to do as much as you can while you're here. And money ain't got nothing to do with it. I almost cussed just now. But money ain't got nothing to do with it. And so I just kind of consciously remind myself that I don't want to go through life missing these huge opportunities because I was playing it safe, right? Which I did do most of my life, just so we're clear. I'm 37 now, and I kind of feel like I did play it safe. And, I have a nice life, but I want to swing for the fences.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because I feel like nowadays, founders and like everyone's like start your own business, like for every single person. But like, even 20 years ago, like my parents, like when I got my first job out of college and I was making $70K and they're like, well, like that's more than we've ever made ever. Like you have health insurance, like stay with them forever. And I'm like, after a year, I'm like, nah, I'm going to quit it and do a startup. Yeah. They're like, no, like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? It's not what I taught you. Same thing. My dad worked at the same company for like 30 something years. So, I get a talking to.
Yeah, exactly. 30 years. Like, everyone's like, you find a good company, you get benefits, you stay there for life.
Yeah. Even the second time I left PayPal, they were mad because when I went back, they're like, that's home. You stay home. And now they were like, oh, yeah. But now they're over it because they, people see what you're doing, right? Do what you're going to do. And people will judge you by your actions and by your, your milestones and your successes. And we're doing really well at Aspireship. So it's really great.
Nice. That's good. And then, so when you're joining also, so I didn't hear you mention the idea. So was the idea ready or did you guys come up with the idea after?
Well, no, I mean, Was the idea ready? I sort of like laugh at the question because I'm like, is it ever ready? I don't know that it's ever done. You know, it's this iterative thing. But no, I mean, where it started, and I was telling this story yesterday to some of our new hires. I was like, the first thing I built was live web conferencing software because we thought we were going to do all live courses. And it turned out we didn't do live courses until like a few months ago. We just started doing that because on demand was way more popular. People wanted the liberty or freedom to sort of watch when they needed to around their schedule. It makes perfect sense, but we started with the premise of live courses are going to be a huge thing, and we don't want to use Zoom because we want a white label experience. So let's build this web conference. So it's funny because now it's like, I ripped it out a while ago, but it's just this great startup story of pivoting, right? But we've done that like 20 times. So the idea was, though, in itself, still in spirit the same, right? Which would the spirit behind the idea or the mission is to connect people with opportunity and to transform their future, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very broad mission, but it's all about helping other people. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. So Corey came to you with that, or is he like, yeah, we're going to build training for sales people?
No, it wasn't. So it wasn't concrete that we were going to do sales right out the gate, but it was we believed it was the right direction to go right in the beginning. So he was already leaning that direction, and we talked about it, and I felt like it was a great idea too, because I felt there was a gap in the market for not just salespeople, but professionals that are not engineers who want to work at technology companies. And I just felt like sales made the biggest sense because, it's a high-paying career that you can break into. That is something that you can be trained for if you demonstrate the right aptitude, the right skill sets, right? Like a lot of other fields. But we saw a path to success there for not just the candidates, but for our ability to provide that service, right? So that's why we chose sales. But I want to be clear, like over time, we'll, given success, which I think we will have, we'll expand. So
yeah, hopefully. And then also with sales, so like when you're building, a product, you're a co-founder. I feel like you have to understand like your product deeply. Yeah. So did you have to go through
sales training?
Yeah, some sort of sales training, exactly.
Well, no, I mean, I went through our training. I didn't necessarily have to go through sales training. I've learned a lot from our training, but no, because we had other experts, right? Corey himself has a lot of sales experience while not traditionally a sales guy. Christine, who is our president and COO, who linked us together, is really the sales expert amongst us. And we brought in Skip Miller as well, who through Christine's relationship with him, who is a sales consultant who helped develop our curriculum. He's an advisor for Aspireship. So the long and short of it is you sort of augment in the areas you're weak with experts, right? But we did feel that we knew, they knew, Corey and Christine knew enough about the sales world to start, at least initially, our mission with Aspireship.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, so on the timeline, so like when did Aspireship start?
Well, because I'm like, when you say start, I'm like, well, when it started officially versus like when we started working on it, those are like two. Yeah. It launched in late October of last year, so very, very recently.
Very recent. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in building the product initially, I know before you said you only started coding now. So like, did you have to, did you do like Udemy? Like how did you get into coding now?
Oh, no, I don't mean, no, I've been coding my whole life, but what I meant was I've never been a programmer as a job.
Oh, gotcha.
I've always programmed, because I love programming. It's something that has set me apart from the infrastructure folks traditionally. Is nowadays it's becoming more common to be a DevOps guy and write code as well. I was the traditional, what they would just call infrastructure operations back in the day, guy who always coded anyway. So it helped me tremendously in my career to be a coder amongst just server guys, but also be a server guy and a network guy. But I've always written code. I just never did it as my title was never developer, right? Is what I meant by that. But yeah, at Aspireship, just day one, before we ever incorporated, I was kind of off to the races with writing code.
Okay. And then also as a CTO, like, did you take on design, product management, like all that?
That's a great question. I'm terrible at those things.
So you gotta be self-aware. So it's good.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a back end guy, and I always tell people like user experience people are worth their weight in gold. Like working in sort of corporate bigger companies, you find that the UX guys are difficult to get a hold of. They're in high demand because making something look and feel a certain way is a difficult thing. I'm no good at that. So we have a guy named Peter Bonnick, and he's on our team, and he runs our user experience. And then Corey himself, in the early days before Peter was able to join, helped us a lot with the product design, and he's pretty good at that.
Okay, no, that's good. Like one thing I was like kind of stress to developers is a lot of them in the bootcamp programs, they kind of just get thrown into the wild and be like, okay, build your portfolio, that designer. But I think it could benefit from design, like for any digital product.
Yeah, and I always say it's difficult. They're two different mindsets: design and product, and then engineering. So it's like one is like you're in the low level details, and one is in like you're in the higher level. And it's very hard to do both at the same time. But experiencing both separately well rounds you so that you can make better decisions when you're in those seats.
No, that's really well said. Like you need to be in a different mindset every time. Because like one, you're trying to get someone to take a certain action and it evokes certain emotions, but another one, you're just trying to get a problem solved.
Yeah, 100%. One's like functional and one's like, I want them to feel a certain way.
Exactly.
I want them to
it's
click
emotional.
this button. You want to click it. You want to click it. So,
yeah, it's all about that red button. If you got a red button, it's getting clicked.
Unlabeled red button.
Yes. So now with Aspireship and kind of building out the program, on the tech side, are you focused mostly just like building out the platform right now, or do you get involved in other stuff as well?
Yeah, well, my focuses are twofold, right? One is building out the platform, right? Mm-hmm. But the other is the business design and strategy as part of the executive leadership team. So that's just like everything you would expect. What are we doing? Where are we going? How are we doing it? Those kind of things that we revisit. But I would say, because I had to do this for tax purposes, because they were asking me like, how much time do you guys spend on R&D versus how much, Any case, I would say like 90% of the time, maybe 80, I'm writing code. And then the other 10 to 20% is the business strategy part.
Gotcha. So that's more like, hey, like we could do this with tech, like maybe we try this out in the business. Is like that?
Some of it, that comes up a lot, right? Where it's like, hey, we can do this or do that, and what do you guys think? But that to me is more of the product thing that Peter leads. So weekly he goes over and he's also part of the executive leadership team. But weekly he'll go over with the whole team. Here's where we think the product should go. Here's sort of the design and features we're thinking about. What do you think? And then we all sort of like pitch in, and then from there, comes our actions, and we go off to the races with building stuff out and iterating. To your point, the iterating thing is really cool. The whole fail fast thing has been truer than true. Like when we launch something, it is like seconds. When we pivot, it is like minutes. Like we're like, that didn't work, change it. That didn't work, change it. And it's fast. Corey's really good at that. So that's one of the things I've learned from him. I'm like, man, there's an impatience to it, and it's really great because we respond very quickly to what our users are telling us, and the results they speak for themselves. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. Like listening to users, because I feel like the classic thing with developers is a lot of developers that are founders, usually they come into like, okay, if I build this, people will come. But that's not how it is. That's
not how it is. I always tell people that is a Steve Jobs. Like you are not a Steve. There's like very few people that can say I build it and they will come. But for the majority of everyone else, it's build it. Test the crap out of it, sort of A/B test. Did this work better? Did that work better? And respond to the data in that feedback loop.
Exactly. Build for people, not for solutions, I guess.
Yeah. Solve their problem. Don't solve a problem.
Exactly. Better said than I could. And then, so one thing that I'm interested in, because in my last startup with the technology, we kind of had, bugs, and like as it got bigger, it was like, okay, here's another bug, and then as a kind of application grows, how do you make sure that it still functions and make sure that the tests are always going to come out positive?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, right? Testing is the first thing I would say, right? And look, I'm not a TDD guy, so I'm not big on writing unit tests. I'm big on synthetic tests, though, meaning I like to test the entire application. So that's somewhat of like, there's unit testing, there's integration testing, and then there's the idea of running synthetic requests through your application, testing it that way. So you're sort of testing not just the top of the funnel, sort of where the request comes in, but you're also testing, does the outcome on the other side after it connects through all these dependencies work. And I think that's a great way to test because you get a lot of bang for your buck. Scale wise, you're going to run into trouble long term, and you should test more thoroughly, like the unit testing and all that. But that's kind of what I do today. So like anytime I develop something and I know that function is critical, I go ahead and write a synthetic test with like a Selenium to drive my application and do various clicks and things and inputs like signups would be an example, right? If signups breaks in a startup, that's really, really bad. You're getting like hundreds or thousands of signups a day. Yeah. And so I have something that runs and notifies me if something goes wrong. But yeah, I think that, and then, writing clean code or non-buggy code it's more of an art than a science, I would say. There's a lot of different takes on how you can do that. Mine is really like, I don't know, you just do the best you can, right? Because like a startup is hard. Like you got to move fast. And I'm speaking from a place where I'm the only person writing code. So it's double hard there because you really have to be prudent about, can I take the time to build this right? Can this be built better later? What edge cases can occur? And then where can I cut corners and where can't I? That's really important.
So with the synthetic test, so are you using like an application, like some sort of tool for the Selenium test? Or you're like writing, is Selenium a language? Like,
it's a tool.
Yeah,
and it's got I don't think I'm trying to think of how it works. Like, I don't think it's its own SDK, but you basically are writing like JavaScript to instrument things to happen on the site. Like, I don't know if you know what an XPath is, but just to give you the basics of how it works, like you go into a website, you right click inspect mode, go into developer mode, get an XPath for like an object, and you take that XPath and you could say, I want to click this button, or I want to read this text, right? And those are the functions that Selenium provides on top of that. So it's like some sort of an SDK.
You're really good at explaining those technical concepts, honestly. So that's good.
And you mentioned like the sales part. Like I think I explained things pretty well, and partially that's because I was an architect for many years. So when you're an architect, you learn how to do two things. You learn how to explain things well, and you learn how to sell. So I'm pretty good at both of those, I think.
True. And then also in product development, I feel like what happens is when you work with non-technical people, that they come with big ideas, and then your job is to kind of say, hey, like that will take 6 months. We could do this though in 3. So stuff like that. So like, how do you balance their ask with what's physically possible?
Well, for me, you balance it with value to the business, right? Like to me, it doesn't matter how hard it is to do technically, if it's going to take me 3 months or 6 months. It's more about what's the return for us on that investment, right? So like you can do anything you need to do, but do you need to do it? It's all about the things you say no to are more important than the things you say yes to, right? So you've got to be very crystal clear about, this is like table stakes for our business. This is like the most important things that we have to go after. Like for us, right? Making sure we can get new candidates, making sure that we can get them through our course, making sure that the quality of those people is high, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of very important things that have to be done correctly. And so what are the things we need to do to continue to support that or to change that trajectory if we're in some sort of a situation where we see something's not working? So yeah, it's less about the technical complexities. Because like, let's say here's a great example. I don't have a lot of mobile development experience, except that is how I proposed to my wife. I did an iPad app, but I wouldn't say I'm good at it. So I don't have mobile development experience. But if that became important for our company to have more than just a mobile responsive website and to have like an actual native mobile app, we would go hire somebody right away to do that, because it would be, if it was important, we would go do it if it was, important to the business, right? So those decisions get made that way. Based on the value, what's the return for the company? And sometimes that return is operational efficiency so that we reduce headcount. Sometimes it's scale, and sometimes it's revenue, right?
Gotcha. And wait, did you say you built an app to propose?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got to hear this story first.
Well, when I was looking at ways to propose to my wife, it was like, it needs to be unique to you. Because I was like, I want to do a hot air balloon, and I felt like it was all generic. And so I was like Googling ideas in a traditional geek sense, right? I'm like, how can I do a great job at this? And it was like, you should do something unique to you. And I'm like, what can I do that other people can't do? I was like, I know, I could write a mobile app. And at the time, I was also doing the music label stuff, so I was doing a mobile app for that as well. So I knew I could do it, and so I threw together this mobile app that when she got home, I had a post-it note, like, turn on your iPad, which I had bought her. She turns on the iPad, and then it started there was this button that said, I don't know what it said, click here, I love you, whatever. I have a video of it, but she clicked that button, and then it started playing Bruno Mars, I Think I Want to Marry You. And it went through this storyboard. So yeah, that's a funny story.
That's how you combine the geekiness with the romance.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's a whole lot of other stuff, but the iPad was the core of the proposal.
That's amazing. So looking back at Aspireship now, so right now, how many students or people have gone through the program so far, and what are you seeing so far?
Well, I was gonna all the way through the program. I actually don't know. That's bad that I don't know that. I review these numbers every week. But graduates-wise, we have a few hundred. And I can tell you that graduation is not easy. It's only the top 10% of people that graduate. Wow. I think that's why we've maintained a relevance and a respect in the community. People are very passionate about us when they pass, because it's pretty hard to pass at Aspireship. But yeah, we've had hundreds of grads so far. And that means we've had thousands of people sort of in the door that haven't passed, if anybody's doing the math. And yeah, that's been our success so far, I think.
So with these hundreds of grads, are they getting into jobs pretty quickly? And if so, what's the secret?
Yeah, great question. I mean, that's been one of the hardest parts about this business, and partially because of COVID, right? That changed everything. I don't know if you've been experiencing that with the interns, but anybody I think in the hiring space has gone through some tremendous sort of toil or tumultuous. I don't know. It's been crazy with COVID. So that affected us as well, but in a really positive way, which is really interesting. Positive way in one way, and then negative in another. But basically, we have now, in my opinion, figured out sort of a lot of secret sauce things that are getting people placed very quickly and very effectively. And a lot of it has to do with aligned expectations. We understand better what the customers want, and we're delivering very high quality people, and they're seeing that. And they're a lot of the people we've placed are the highest performers. I say a lot of the people, but literally it's 100% of it. We haven't had anybody tell us that the person we placed is not we get these calls and they're the best salesperson we have. And when layoffs hit for COVID, they kept all of our people. They laid off other people and kept all of our people. It was a testament. I mean, I feel very bad for anybody who lost their job, but it's a testament for the quality of people we're producing through the program. And it was hard because nobody was hiring for a while. That was what I wanted to say about COVID. But coming out of it, these last and not that we're coming out of COVID, but coming out of the hiring, the last month and a half or so, people have been returning to just hire in storms. So we're seeing tons of last week we had our biggest week. It was 8 people got placed. It was
great,
awesome.
eight lives changed basically.
Yeah, exactly. I love how you put that. That's beautiful. That's how I think about it.
Exactly. And what I would say is each person you help get a job, you're helping, 5 people connected to them. So yes. It keeps spreading. That's
these people, when they get the job, people say, how'd you do it? And then we get all these referrals from these successes, which we knew would happen, but to see it happen and then to watch people, I don't know what the right word is, but just pull themselves through because of that, because they know that there's success. And so the grit and the perseverance that they will demonstrate and the aptitude that they will gain, and then the finish line. And then I'm not very like into sports, but it almost feels that way when they reach that finish line. I'm like, yes! You get just like
coach in the background.
Yeah, and they go to like an interview and then they're so happy and they're telling you about their family and how their family, and these people, these poor people have struggled for months without work because of COVID. A lot of people that are on the market. So it's touching to be able to help.
And then with these people, well, first, it's honestly amazing. Like hearing that and that people are hiring, especially that's coming back a little bit now. But with these people, like, what's their background usually?
Great question.
Are any of them coming from tech, or any of them from sales? Like, what's it like?
Yeah, we have, I mean, this is the thing. We have a tremendous diversity of backgrounds. It's something we've been trying to nail down on, like what exactly is, and the highest volume of people have some sales experience. Okay. But Aspireship, we sort of created with the idea that anyone could change their future and their outcome. So it's sort of egalitarian in that way. We believe that, if you put in the work, if you learn, that you can actually change your future and be connected with an opportunity that you want and will love. And so that long-winded thing that I just said is to say that we hope that people that, I'm speaking a little early. There are people that we will place that do not have sales backgrounds. And so I'm not going to say specifically what, but it touches your heart. Like these people, they do non-tech jobs. They're nowhere near software. They're nowhere near sales. I was going to give examples, but I realized that we have some people in process, and I don't want to mess that up for anybody. So.
Write the feature, write it.
Yeah. So.
And so with these kind of programs, so Aspireship, and then looking at kind of other job training programs for design, development, everything. Do you see this as kind of like the future of education, like over college?
I totally do. I mean, I told you about my background. I'm very biased. So for me, I've always, and this is the other thing that really resonated with me when Corey told me about Aspireship and the vision, right? Was I was like, what I love about it is that it encompasses something that like I have always walked and lived, which is I believe anyone can learn anything. And I know it sounds cheesy because it sounds like the thing your mom told you, right? Like you can be anything you want, right? But I'm like, you can. Like you can. Like I don't care where you're from or what your background is. This can happen if you want it bad enough. And so I love these companies that are disrupting traditional education and providing an alternate path. And not just because, it's like less expensive, but because I believe that if you truly want to do something, there is a specific education for that something, and you don't need all this other stuff. Now, look, I got nothing against being well-rounded. If you want to learn about history or whatever you want to learn about, or just be well-rounded, you can do that. You can go to college, but I do believe there should be many alternatives to that path for people who want an accelerated approach to learning. Because I think teaching is something that we need to do a better job at. It's not the teachers. I think teachers are fabulous, but it's how we're teaching people. It should be done in a much better way. I always tell people like, I know I'm going on, but just one point is that I always tell people you should learn how you learn. It's the most important thing you can ever teach yourself. Learn how you learn, and then you can learn whatever you want. But you got to learn how you learn, because everyone learns different. Like for me, I can learn from books. It's a gift. Not a lot of people can do that. But, it's not that I just learned from reading the book. I learned from reading the book and practicing and then watching the video and doing. I have this method. Develop your method and you can learn anything.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like a lot of these programs, they have different structures. Like some, it's a lot of, hey, you just do this whenever you want. Some it's one-on-one. Some it's you're in actual class together with a live teacher. So I feel like each person is unique in their learning. That's one of the biggest benefits. Another one that I see is, with college, it's like a 4-year degree, like a lot of money. And I think the time is honestly worth more than the money, even for like a Harvard. But I
agree with you.
I think each person has multiple kind of careers in their life. Like I think, yeah, you might start as a developer, but then maybe one day you're a designer, or one day you go into finance. And these programs enable people to get into that easier.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's great. It's fantastic. I love everything you just said. It's perfect. All right, man, it's perfect.
So looking now like at the bootcamp side on the tech side. So for people that are coming into the market now, I know you said you're seeing a little bit of uptick on the sales side, but what would you recommend, or what would you do if you were a bootcamp grad going into the market now?
So nothing can separate the sort of confidence that somebody gets, like a hiring manager, from a human touch.
Yeah.
So the boot camps are great because the boot camps are all about demonstrating aptitude, right? You've demonstrated that you can do something, or that you have a certain level of skill. But what they still don't know about you is who you are and how you fit their culture, and how you're going to show up for work each day. Are you going to be motivated? Are you going to be passionate? You're going to be a problem solver? Are you going to be an out of the box thinker, right? Like, these are the things you have to demonstrate that can't really be shown in a platform yet. You sort of need to immerse somebody in a social setting and give them problems to work through for them to demonstrate that. I think if I were coming out of the boot camp, I would be very social. So I would have my YouTube channel, and I'd be demonstrating my abilities just for the sake of having a way for an employer or a hiring manager to go out there and find me. Because it used to be, you have a GitHub and people go to your GitHub and that's your portfolio. But any way you can demonstrate that you're a learner, that you're motivated, and that you're willing to put in the work is great. And then make sure it's just socially available, and try to be out there networking. Because like I said, the human touch, like, get in front of somebody, speak to them. I don't care how you do it. I really don't care what the median is. I don't care if you cold call them. I don't care if you email them. I don't care if you LinkedIn them, but just try to get in front of somebody physical, and try to connect with somebody at the company and talk to them and get your way in that way. Because I have this thing where I say, no one's going to help you unless you help yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the way you help yourself is by being a squeaky wheel. Squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So put yourself out there in as many people's paths as you can. And I know you're like, oh, I might be being annoying. No, you're not annoying. You're somebody who's trying to get a job. You're hungry. You're demonstrating that hunger, and believe in yourself.
No, that's a good point. Like, you have to help yourself. Like, everyone is busy. Like, there's not going to be handouts, people coming, hey, oh, you need a job. Like, let me do everything for you. You got to like force your way into their attention. Like you said, it's not annoying. It's more, people are busy. You have to remind them. Otherwise you won't get the result you want out of them.
Well, nobody's going to do the heavy lifting for you. When you demonstrate that you're willing to not give up and that you're trying hard, people want to help you when they see you trying hard. But if you're not trying, people don't want to help you if you're not trying, because they're like, I'm too busy to help you. What am I going to just pull these teeth myself? No, I can't just drag you through this process. You've got to come 90. I'll come 10. Right.
No, exactly. Like, there's no handouts, none of that.
No,
especially not these
interviews too. That's important.
Yeah. So then now, I know you said what you would do if you were a bootcamp grad looking for a job, first engineering job, but you looking towards the future, when you're trying to hire, what's like the one quality you're looking for?
Attitude.
Okay. And how do you display that, or how would you get that out of someone in an interview?
So the way I do that, I'm very unique. I don't.
Okay.
Remember the first time that Corey and Christine saw me interview, they were like, "The hell?" Like, that is different, because I'm just different. But I'm very conversational, and what I like to do is I like to get people comfortable. I like to talk very personal. What do you do in your spare time? This and that. But I get through. Because, I'm just that way naturally. So I just go with how I naturally interview. And what I learn is, what do they like to learn about? What do they value? Do they show up early? Do they show up late? Why? What's important to them? Because those are the kind of questions I ask. So it's all about personal character. I'm huge on personality tests, just so you know. I study them, so I give myself some credit for I'll try to predict people's Myers-Briggs scores and horoscopes, and I'm into all this crap because I love people. I love the entire psychology of people in my version of psychology, not the sort of educated sense. I'm doing it wrong, but I love character. I love people's character. I love trying to figure out how they work and why they work and what motivates them, because I respect everybody's uniqueness in that way.
Yeah, and I love the personality test also, but I feel like a lot of companies they'll only do that once someone's in their company. But I forget what it's called, but I know there was one open source personality test that had a 99% success rate in matching companies and
oh wow,
candidates.
Yeah, I don't think I know about that.
I need to find it again. It's something I want to.
Yeah, if you find it, send it to me because I would be interested for sure. That's cool.
Yeah, and if I'll find it. I got a message my recruiting person that he told me about it. But all right, so now we want to get into questions. So for anyone in the audience, I know Shannon said I stole her question, but
okay.
But for anyone else, if you have your questions now, just type them in the chat and we'll throw them up over here. And in the meantime, I'll just go back to the initial comments. So we do have a couple Arizonians. So Shannon is one. Looks like Zac is in Tempe. And then there's some good questions for the spotlight background. Is that yours or what's the spotlight?
Oh, wait. I don't know if she's talking about your background or mine. Does she just mean my lighting?
Maybe, I don't know.
Or is she talking about that, you have a sun and mountains? I don't know. I have a spotlight on. I forgot about that because Rod knows I had a different camera. It was higher quality and I turned my light on. So I don't know if that's what that's about, but I have this big light in my face right now.
Yeah, and then so Zac, like what you were saying before about to drop that fire. We had Ritesh saying that you.
Ritesh. Ritesh works at PayPal. He used to work for me. It's a great guy.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ritesh.
And then Shannon loved the proposal stuff, and so did Anna. And let's see. Okay, so now Shannon came with a new question and asked, "What tech stack do you use at Aspireship?"
Oh, I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask. I was hoping because it's my favorite thing to brag about because it's basic. And I believe in this firmly, right? It's I think a lot of people get carried away with technology, shiny objects, as I like to call them. Start with the basics, man. So my tech stack is Python, Flask for the web framework and sort of back end. And my front end is just HTML, CSS, and jQuery and Bootstrap. That's it. There's no React. There's no Vue.js. There's no Angular. Eat your heart out, folks. Very simple and basic.
Why is that though?
For a successful business.
Is it just like those front end frameworks just weren't needed?
So no, it's just that I read a bunch of books in preparation for a startup, and I went back and forth in my head on technology stacks. I was going crazy, and that's usually what I do. And what I came to realize was that no matter what I build, I'm gonna have to tear it down and rebuild it 1,000 times, maybe more.
Yeah.
Especially because I know I'm going to hire people better than me at this stuff. I was going to tease Ritesh, but I can't afford Ritesh, but I'd love to hire that guy. But anyway, the point is I know I'm going to hire people better than me to write code in the future. But I knew I was going to tear it down and rebuild it so many times that I had to choose what I knew best. And those were what I knew best. So I went with that. And I knew that, as the need arises for things that require more languages or frameworks, I would put those in as needed.
Okay. No, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because that first version of a product, you don't know what the future will hold.
No idea.
But then how did you choose Python and Flask?
Again, because I'm the most familiar with Python. Flask because I love it more than Flask is it's philosophical for me. I don't like bloated frameworks, so that's a knock on Django. I've built them both. I'm not a Django guy. I don't like it. Although, it's one of those things where you use the right tool for the job. What I like about Flask is, to our point, we didn't know where it was going. So building something very lightweight, easy to get up and running, quick to iterate with, those were the most important things. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so Ritesh got a question. It's great to hear such good progress made in small time. See, right now you're focused mainly on people looking for career in sales. What are the future plans?
So that's our focus for, I would say, the next foreseeable future. It was more of a Corey question. I have trouble answering that one because we talk about it a lot, but it's hard to know. We still have a lot of work to do to optimize our sort of approach and delivery in the sales sector. But expansion is probably a year away, give or take.
Gotcha. So let's see, Shannon. Oh, she was talking about the actual background in StreamYard. So that makes sense. So thank you.
Oh, Apprentice. Oh, this one. Oh, there's a spotlight up there.
I forgot.
I didn't see it.
So thanks for the appreciation, Shannon. I know I did work hard when I initially created that. Then we have Maddie. So asking if you offer any training for designers right now, but that's a no, I believe, right?
No. Yeah. Nothing in that frame right now, and we probably won't go into that. Designers fall into the sort of engineering category. Yeah, and we're way, if ever, way out from that. So.
Gotcha. And before I get to the next question, so how many people work at Aspireship right now?
Yeah, I love that question too, because that just changed this week. So prior to this week, it was 4. And this week it's 8, or no, it was 5. Sorry, it was 5 prior to this week. Now it's 8.
Congrats, man.
We had 3 people start on Monday. So.
Yeah, so I saw Alexis started, right?
Yep, Alexis Scott is one of them. Anna Majusevic and Jacqueline Mueller. I have to look at that. But yeah, those are the 3 that started. It was marketing, candidate experience, and Alexis Scott is a business development partner for our employer companies.
Gotcha. Well, congrats on that. Always fun growing the team.
Yeah.
The next question from Anna Maria. She's asking if you guys are actively hiring, and if so, what roles?
Not anymore. After we filled those 3 roles, we're not hiring yet. But hiring at a startup is like a daily discussion. So definitely, keep your ear to the ground if you're interested in working with us. Because, or maybe she means roles for sales programs. For that, yeah, we have tons of jobs. Come through the program if you want to get into sales, because there's tons of jobs waiting, which is interesting, right? But it was a situation where no one was hiring, and now everyone's hiring. So if you're looking for a job at sales, come on through. But if you want to work at actual Aspireship, that's different. We don't have roles posted right now, but keep your ear to the ground. Follow us on LinkedIn, and that's how you would hear about it. Yeah,
and for those wondering, the website is aspireship.com. And you guys can read a lot more about them, follow them. If you do want to follow Jason, though, then on LinkedIn, that's where I found him. And also on Twitter. I'm not sure how active you are in there, but I always try to throw that up there.
I used to be pretty active on Twitter. I'm a big Twitter guy because it's how I get my tech news. So yeah,
that's one thing is like Twitter is huge for tech.
Yeah.
So you have to be on there at least a little bit.
Yeah, like I follow like some of the creators of Kubernetes. I follow like the Docker folks. So I follow people like that, and they're like, "Oh, we're announcing a new version of this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So yeah.
And then so for anybody that isn't in our community for bootcamp grads, you can always join at the link below. But everyone, join me in just saying thank you so much to Jason for joining us tonight. A lot of knowledge on us that was just dropped. So hopefully everyone got something that they can take away and help improve either their job search, their professional career, or their life. But yeah, once again, thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Rod. I could not thank you enough. This was a wonderful opportunity, and I really appreciate it. And I hope to be back someday.
One day, and we'll touch base in another year when both Apprentice and Aspireship are blowing up.
Rocket ships.
Rocket ships. Yeah, that's your logo.
Logo.
Good night, everyone.